Since 2003, this is The Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Junk Be Gone, Phoenix Conversions.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you with us here today. There are 4 of us here today. We're spread out a little bit more than usual, so it's going to look a little weird, but it's social distancing. We've got Clorox wipes that we've used everywhere, Lysol wipes, whatever. I don't want to do a plug for one. Let's do a plug for everybody. Our hair is getting a little shaggier, but we're going to be here talking sports today. Actually got a new segment for you, too. Just if you're like me, just give me something positive. So we have a new good news segment as well. We'll try and have some fun today while we talk about UT sports and, of course, how the virus is impacting UT sports. Let's get right into it. First segment of today's show is brought to you by Phoenix Conversions. If you need a new accessory added or special customization to your van, truck, or SUV, you have to turn to the pros. Since 1987, Phoenix Conversions has been East Tennessee's top dogs when it comes to prepping work fleets and individual vehicles, and there are some of those folks still needing to do their work. If you need to get your vehicles for your company updated, place to go, Phoenix Conversions. All right, let's welcome in today's panel on this very, very wide shot. Looks like there's some it's the missing man formation. Right there from WNML, we have Josh Ward. Josh, thanks for being in here today.
I like this a little better, actually.
That's right. Well, we had Ryan Callahan was here last week, and about 4 times during the show, he was like, we need a little more room. We should spread out a little bit more. Can we get a little? And he was right. So we are spread out. Down there, longtime sports writer, Hall of Fame sports writer. We got Mike Strange. Mike, thank you for joining us. And we have one more who's waiting to come in. Vince Ferrara is sealed in his plastic bubble over offset right there. And for those of you who don't know what the boy in the plastic bubble is, there you go. It was a John Travolta movie many, many years ago. For the youngsters out there who've ever watched Riff Tracks, there's a great Riff Tracks of the boy in the plastic bubble. So Vince will be back with us in a couple of minutes, or be with us in a couple of minutes. All right. First segment, I want to talk about Greg Sankey. The SEC commissioner came out this week and kind of gave a state of the league amidst all this craziness. And it seems he was upfront about this. Look, there's some questions that we just can't answer because it's changing as we're sitting here, and that's certainly true of us today. But I want to run through some of his bigger comments, some of the bigger topics, and get your take on what he had to say. We will start. He was asked specifically about spring practice. He said, I'm not going to be overly optimistic about the return to practice. We haven't fully foreclosed that opportunity, but I think practically that window is very narrow. If we're not able to practice further this spring, I'm confident we'll be seeking opportunities to make sure our teams are adequately prepared entering the season. Elements of that are going to be guided by the public health realities in front of us. Okay. Guys, just on the spring front, it's supposed to be shut down until April 15th, I think. I don't see any way in the world they're going to put 100 guys back together, 150 when you count the walk-ons and everything, and coaches and everybody. I don't see any way they're going to get back to spring practice this year. Does anyone?
No, and I think one of the main challenges would be they have to be present to practice together. And currently, they've told their athletes, go home if you can. Now, not all have gone home, but many of the athletes are away from campus. Now, I know if you want to practice, you just say, hey, come back. But if the university is saying stay away, it would be difficult for the coaches then to say, let's get together and practice. So right now, I think that's why Greg Sankey sees it as a very narrow likelihood, because I think for the time being and for the foreseeable future, they're going to tell the athletes to stay away from campus.
Exactly. Agree?
Yeah, I agree totally what he said. I'm going to be surprised if many of us are doing much of anything on April 15th. I certainly hope I'm wrong, but that's only, a little over 3 weeks?
Yeah, exactly, 3 weeks, and now you're talking about the state of Tennessee finally looking at a shelter-in-place order for the people here. Looks like that could be coming down. All right, so he did mention the possibility, though, of getting teams adequately prepared for the season. All right, let's say things clear up for the summer. We've seen that in the past with viruses and bugs, that they kind of clear up and get a little better in the summer. Maybe we'll get a much-needed break and some respite there before it comes back. But if that happens, are we talking about trying to find a way to get all these kids back on campus to do this in July? I mean, it seems like it's going to be a shortened off season no matter what they do, because I can't imagine they would find a way to get everybody to make fall camp 3 weeks longer to get 15 practices or however many practices for spring practice wedged into July before the summer. Thoughts on how they might do this?
I hadn't really thought of that coming back early, but I don't really foresee that happening. I would think all these guys, wherever they are at home, are on regimens of what to do. Their programs have provided that, and then you come back maybe a couple of days early, but 3 weeks or whatever of August
Yeah.
is what you get.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, depending on when or if, whatever the word is, we can get back to some normalcy. I do wonder, do they relax some of the off-season or summer rules? Do they allow more hands-on with coaches and players? Because also when we talk about getting back to fall camp, let's say that works out just fine. We're not going through the same regular off-season we talk about,
right,
where we're talking about the players with the strength and conditioning coaches. So there is the accountability that is required for the players, and coaches are talking to the athletes and saying this is what you need to do, and you can put a regimen in front of them as best you can. But we're talking about 18 to 22-year-old athletes. They're all going to have a different level of responsibility they're going to take on. So when they get back, you want to make sure that you get athletes in the right kind of shape, because the last thing you want is to say, hey, let's go practice more, but they're not in the right physical condition to do that, and then you risk injury. So I do wonder, do they relax rules to allow coaches more hands-on opportunities in June or July when they're typically still there for summer school to do as much as you can, at least for preparation for the season?
I would say that probably there were decades that went by where college football players were home in the summer. They weren't on campus. They weren't doing 7-on-7s. They showed up on August the 5th or whatever and went and played a football season. So that's happened before, and we've gotten so used to it being a year-round thing now, but it wasn't always a year-round thing, and I think they could pull it off.
Well, it's going to be interesting when you're talking about some of the nutrition things that they've sent home with them. Mm-hmm. Not all these guys are going to be able to put in the right calories that they do here. I mean, how many people right now anywhere can get 3 steaks a day, that kind of a thing. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for everybody to come back at the same page. So you hope that for years they didn't. Hopefully it won't be an issue this time. Bigger issue, though, is, and we'll talk about this a little later, we got a segment on this, it's going to be tough, take out the physical part of it, getting everybody adequately prepared that has a new coaching staff, new players on campus. That's going to be an issue as well. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Let's take a look at what Sankey said, the SEC commissioner, about the relaxing the rules on eligibility, giving some guys a year back. I know that's an agenda item nationally, but I don't have a prediction right now. I'm certainly open to the conversation, but I think spring sports needs to move forward in a time-efficient manner. Perhaps there's a deeper look into what happens with winter sports eligibility. We talked a little about this last week on the show, guys. Winter sports, if it's me, tough break. I don't see how I mean, most of those sports were over anyway, and if you missed an NCAA tournament, life ain't fair. The spring sports, I love the idea. If you can make it work, great. And it's probable that the NCAA will say, do it, just to get the positive pub. But you hear a coach like Tony Vitello here at UT this week talking about, this is going to be a nightmare. I mean, you talk about sports, what are you doing with your scholarship limits if you're bringing everybody back? Who's coming? Who's going? Who's coming back? I'm sorry, I was going to give you 1/8 of a scholarship. Now I've got to give you 1/16. I think they'll do it. I think it's going to be a nightmare. I don't think they should do it. I like the idea if you can work it out. I don't think they'll be able to work it out in a smart way. Thoughts on giving these guys an extra year of eligibility?
Hasn't a lower division, Division III or somebody already said they're going to do that? Or did I make that up?
Well, the NCAA says they're open to it. I haven't heard about Division III, but...
If you do it, and I'm for it, for the spring sports people, you obviously have to adjust your scholarship limits. If you're going to do this, you have to say, okay, this year we're going to have, 15 scholarships instead of 11.5 or whatever. So you'd obviously have to do that, but I hope they do.
Yeah, I would also hope that schools allow players out. If they've signed and things change with who's coming back, that players might say, you know what, I actually want to go play somewhere else now because my spot's not going to be what I thought it was. Also remember, the top level players, like in baseball, they're just going to move on. They're not going to come back. So they're going to go play pro ball as long as they're at the point of eligibility to do that. So the fact that the NCAA so quickly said, we want to do this, we want to extend eligibility, and Karen Weekly said this week it's not just for seniors, it would be essentially adding an extra year of eligibility. The NCAA is going to have to offer the financial relief, and they're going to have to change rules. You can't do it if you don't change the rules.
And then not all schools are going to be able to afford to do it.
That's what I'm saying. The NCAA needs to offer relief. They need to provide some of the financial relief if they're going to tell smaller schools with smaller budgets that we're going to give you this opportunity.
Agreed. Where's the NCAA make its 90% of its money? NCAA tournament in basketball. You didn't have that.
But their bank's not at zero, is it? I mean,
No.
I would think they've got an account with some money in it that they can provide.
They do. It's going to be very interesting. I don't see this working well if they do it. I think they'll do it because it's a PR win for them, and they never get PR wins.
I would think buying a PR win would be a pretty good move.
We'll see. I don't know how much money it's going to cost to handle that.
I don't think they would they did it within 24 hours, say we want to do this. I don't think they would have so quickly publicly said this is what we're planning on doing if they didn't have some kind of plan in place for it.
I disagree with you there. I think they would say yes to the PR and not have any idea what they're doing. I think we've seen enough with the NCAA to know.
As slow as the NCAA is with just about everything else, that would surprise me.
Okay, very good. When we come back, what Greg Sankey said about football season. We're going to have one? We'll talk about that. Come on back on the Sports Source.